Advice for network people.
The superpower that we have as network engineers, we have end-to-end thinking automatically. We can connect dots that most people don't. That's the superpower we have that can make us good in this role.
I hear that word a lot these days, platform, but do I as a network engineer need to do something with my devices, or does it just work with the stuff that's already out there?
If you're having metrics, events, logs, and traces that you are sending somewhere else, you can already start to send them to the FSO platform. So the only thing you need to do is that. If you're an application developer, for instance, you may go one step further because you want to instrument the application code so you can have visibility on runtime. That also helps with security.
Hey everyone, David Bombal back with a very special guest here at Cisco Live. Bryan, welcome.
Thank you.
Bryan, you were telling me offline you got a really interesting story, but before we get to your story, like your personal story I want to hear, and also the business story, tell us a little bit about where you work and sort of what's happened recently.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Bryan Laszlo, manager of application performance for Carhartt. Carhartt is a global premier workwear brand that's been around since 1889. It was founded in the Detroit area in 1889, so 134 years. Still a family-owned company. So, and we now we employ about 5,500 employees around the world, and it's been a very popular brand, and you see it in television shows now, and it's all over the world. So it's been crazy.
Carlos, welcome.
Thank you. David, how are you doing, man?
Very good. It's great to have you here. Now, I got to ask you a really important question. CCIE, what's your number?
8567.
8567. So when did you get that?
In 2001.
So just before me, I'm 11,023.
See?
Yeah, there we go. So tell us a story, because there's this new product Cisco have just released or made public today, FSO. And you were telling me your story. You're networking background.
Yes.
And then now you're doing this.
Yes.
So perhaps you can tell us your story and then the business. What does it actually do in the business?
Absolutely. So I started my career in networking, found my way into networking, and did that with a healthcare provider for 21, 22 years.
Yeah.
Found my way to Carhartt after that, and it still is in networking. And over time, got more responsibilities, went into leadership, picked up the whole infrastructure area, and been doing that for a while. We went through some infrastructure transformation, business transformation, and now we've come back to trying to focus in on performance, try to get, start reducing the chaos and start bringing back, good, solid operations. So part of the need there was to get more visibility. We're out in the cloud now. We subscribe to a lot of SaaS providers. So as you can imagine, a network guy's like, how did I wind up in charge of all of this now?
Exactly.
Right? So, but my team and I started talking about what do we need. So we brought in a few years ago to start monitoring the e-com website that, App Dynamics. So you could see how the sales are going on Black Friday, how they're going on Cyber Monday, kind of start adding more tier one applications into that. But that's only part of the picture, right? So now we're looking at this FSO thing, and what is that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Practically, what is it? If I'm trying to get in my head, you've got a retail store, you've got the cloud, you've obviously got a head office, a whole bunch of places. Do you have to go and install software or agents on all of these devices, or how do you get the telemetry or all the information to FSO?
Yeah, so depending on what you want to accomplish, yes, you can do that. So it's really about what are you after.
But we don't want to talk about CCIE now. I've been told, yeah, we can, but I've been told I need to quiz you about FSO.
Go for it.
What is it? Why do I care?
So FSO stands for Full Stack Observability. It's pretty much a capability that allows you to ingest telemetry from multiple sources, from multiple tools or source of signals that tends to be separate for multiple domains and associated teams. So let me give you an example. So today, if you're running an application on your phone and something doesn't go right, your experience goes bad. You may be mad. Usually the network, it's the CCIE's fault.
Yeah, that's right.
As it turns out, it most likely may, but it also may be the code that someone pushed on your phone, or maybe actually the backend application running, or maybe that, for the good or for the bad, there is some security things that the SecOps guys already fixed, but they put the infrastructure on patching. So there's a lot of correlation that needs to happen. And today, everything tends to be isolated amongst multiple groups and the tools that they use. But since experience is now the new KPI that everybody's looking for, like I said to you, is experience on you using the app, then you cannot achieve experience, especially on real time, because the patience for the Homo sapiens is zero these days.
How long is this going to take?
If you don't bring all this correlation and you don't bring observability across the full stack. That's pretty much what it is and why it matters.
So your personal journey from networking, now you're doing all this app stuff.
Yep.
So, okay, FSO, it's got a title, but in practice, what does it actually mean for the business?
Right. So to me, and the way I've always thought about it, even before they start calling it FSO, is just end-to-end visibility, making sure that you can measure and monitor from the end user device or whatever device it is through all the steps through the network, but to the back-end systems, middleware, what have you, out in the cloud. It's just having visibility and the ability to observe things happening each step along the way, and then being able to correlate events, correlate problems, see trends. I mean, that's really what it's about.
I've heard you in previous interviews mention pizza as like a good example or like a use case.
Yeah, pizza has been with me since the beginning of the development. I did the Amazon here because I heard that you liked books, but I'm more on the pizza side. So, like, if you get the pizza, let me go to the pizza. Now you want to go
do
to
that
the
example,
pizza.
yeah. That's because I want to get like some practical examples.
So if you have a pizza, if you want to order a pizza, you and I. So typically when you have a pizza on your phone, regardless of the vendor, there are 4 screens, typically. One, you need to log in, right? And the other one, you choose what your pizza is. The third one, you actually pay for it, right? And then the last one is that, okay, it's delivered, and you send your address the pizza to be delivered. Usually those is a silly app for ordering a pizza, have 4 teams being developed. Yeah. So if I'm ordering a pizza and you put on the payment and it paid, but I don't have payment confirmation, I don't know if the pizza comes, so I have a problem. So the pizza is a very interesting B2C, business to consumer example of how experience can frustrate you and I, but have 4 teams that are behind the scenes, let alone the internet. I mean, at home, you may be on the office ordering from the same place, and the internet may be different, even though the code for the app is going to be okay, my experience is going to be different to you. How we make that as part of the full stack observability deliveries is good. But also that example of the pizza has a B2B considerations because you're paying, on my previous example on the multiple credit cards, if one credit card SaaS API endpoint that I'm calling to get a response is not working, the customer that choose that particular method of payment may be affected by an experience on a given time, and the others would not even know that that was happening. So it's fascinating how full stack observability is bringing reality to the business when experience becomes the main business KPI.
On the ground, how has it changed things? Like the story of before perhaps, and then what does it look like now?
Right. So, it's kind of tied to my journey to this point. So we kind of did a reconfiguration in the infrastructure area. So there could be a team, and this is key. You need someone that's focused on this. If you want to be successful at full stack observability, somebody in your team has to own it. It has to be a group. You can house it under infrastructure. You can house it under solutions, wherever you want, to operations. But it's really going to operate in the middle of all those things.
Okay.
So really my job right now is to learn what the business cares about. Because we're great about, IT loves to make metrics. Let's go a bunch of reports. Let's see what the CPU is doing, all that stuff. But you show that to a business person, and they're like, I really don't care. Yeah. I just want to know why the register is so slow, or we can't contact our payment provider, whatever, those kinds of things. So we're trying to tie everything that we're measuring and monitoring so you can roll it up to something the business is tracking and they do care about. So my job right now is kind of to show what's possible. Using these tools, start creating some sample dashboards and show them what we can measure, what we can show. And that's really the start of the journey. Now, to actually get the investment needed to complete the picture with Thousand Eyes and things like that, was I drew a picture. I just drew a picture of the step from the store, from a register, and everything that it had to hop through, and for all the various transactions. And then I started drawing a red X everywhere where we didn't have good visibility.
Okay, that's
the light
good,
bulb
yeah.
finally went off. And they're like, that's why it takes so long. That's why we have to call 15 people to figure out if it's something slow. They blame the network first, always.
Of course, yeah, of course.
So we're about trying to show it's not the network. But to the point is now you can pinpoint in FSO. You can see something turn red, go get the person that's in charge of whatever that is, and go fix it.
So when you talk about full stack, are you talking about from the app all the way down?
Very good question. I actually have a lot of people that ask me, what do you mean by full? How full is your full?
Yeah.
These kind of things. Right? So there are 2 ways for you to look at the full stack observability. There are customers that look at the full for, as you said, a technology lens. And they compare itself, okay, is that a full stack that goes from all the way to the application down to containers, runtime environment, servers, network, compute, blah, blah, blah. So that is one lens for it. We handle that as well. The other perspective of full stack is a lot of people look at full stack from the lens of the teams that they need to convert. So they have an operations teams from applications. So the app ops teams, the SecOps teams, the NetOps teams, the whole IT ops, the line of business. And when you look from teams, they are looking for, okay, in order to achieve that full stack observability, I'll need to somehow bring this full amongst all those teams. What we do at Cisco, if you realize what I just said, I have a technology view and I have a people view. Usually when you try to get those across, you end up with a politics lens, something that's complicated. Yep. So we took an approach that instead of looking at this, we considered signals. So you have metrics, events, logs, and traces. So metrics are pretty much aggregate of information. What's percentage of a CPU in average for the week? Or what's the latency of a network going through the internet, something like that. So we have metrics. It's obviously independent of vendor or product. Same thing with logs. Logs are something that is timestamped, so you can define how frequent or not. And logs, you have a log for a firewall, you have a log for a Cisco switch, you have a log for a Windows server. It's still a log, right? And events are timestamped, but it's not that predictable. So you won on the lottery, that's an event, good one. You got hit by a malware, it's an event, a bad one, still an event. So ingest all of this. And tracing is the measure of experience. So let's say you and I are trying to buy something on Amazon. Let's say a book costs $20. You go pay with Visa, I pay with MasterCard. So if one of those credit card vendors is not working, the experience for either of us is going to be bad, and the other one is going to be good. But even if both of us are using the same for transact, for Amazon, it's still two guys buying the same book for the same cost. If you spend 20 seconds and go put on the card and pay, it's different than me roving around of the website and clicking on all the ads. My experience is going to be different. For the back-end people that build the page, I have a different approach for the business to me than for you. So we trace all of that. This is independent of vendor, independent of product, and more than anything, independent of tools. So if I go back, how full is that full? We are full from the lens of metrics, events, logs, and traces. And we build a platform that ingests and correlates that from Cisco or otherwise. And that's where we get the customers very interested because it empowers them to actually reduce the frictions of teams because you're not saying you are better than me or it's your fault versus somebody else's fault. And also you're agnostic of the technology stack. I can run this on the latest and greatest on event-driven architectures like Kubernetes or Lambdas of the world, but I can also run this on traditional environments. We have customers running this, interesting enough. I have a customer that runs on full stack with Cisco. The application run microservices hosted on a public cloud provider, and the backend is on a mainframe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we are observing anyway because the experience of the customer business app is dependent upon that flow.
FSO, how is that different to Dynamics 1000 Eyes? Because there's multiple pieces there, right?
Yeah, right. And it's really about bringing it all together and giving you a unified view. In our particular case, what we're doing to make that happen is, one of the complaints is, well, what tool do we go in to figure out what's going on?
Yeah, exactly.
Or if maybe another team has a different tool that they're using for something. What we're trying to do is take all that telemetry from those tools, bring them into at least I call it a first look dashboard. So we're actually going to use Grafana in Azure for that. So we've spun that up. And now we can take telemetry from Thousand Eyes. We can take telemetry from App Dynamics. If there's another software package for the POS vendor, we can bring that all in and create a dashboard that's tailored to the audience that we're building that for. So it's really about supporting the operations of IT systems, and you can even start tying that into business transactions all the way through and actually elevate it so you can show a dashboard to our business teams and executives to show where things are in the system.
So is FSO like a concept or is it a product that Cisco has?
FSO is, you can consider this like a just conversation on something that is an industry transition, is a business requirement. So everybody's going to go across something like FSO, but it's also an offer from Cisco. So let me try to touch the 2 points.
Yeah, that'd be great.
If you go back 10 years or so, I used to have a little bit more hair, or it was not that
Don't
gray.
worry,
same page. So if you go back 10 years, you remember DevOps, right? What DevOps was, today is obvious. Everybody talks about DevOps, it's mainstream, nobody argue about this. If you go 10 years ago, what actually DevOps did is actually abstracted what used to be knowledge that belongs to two different groups to become something that is now embedded in an automated pipeline. So it also bridged a gap that existed from a technology to be able to push code on the agility, because that's what the requirement for the business applications back then, but also brought two teams together. Imagine FSO to doing a similar concept, but instead of just looking upon two teams like developers and operations back then, you look about all the teams that needs to have information, the signals that I said to you, metrics, events, logs, and traces, correlated to drive insights that can provide an action. So this is an industry transition because of digitization that's happening, and the pandemic, the pandemic rather just accelerated more because people will have plans for 3 years, and then all of a sudden they need to do everything in 3 months. Yeah. So FSO is an industry transition. In order to fulfill that, Cisco came with a Cisco full stack observability platform and all the apps that goes on top of this, which is a Cisco offer. But we did it different because, as you may know, and you are CCI like me, so you know Cisco don't sell direct. We have our partner ecosystem. We are the gold standard for this for over 3 decades. And we build the platform extensible, so we have our own offers if the customer wants to, but the partners build on top.
So APIs,
and
stuff
monetize
like that.
APIs, SDKs, and they build on top of the platform, so it can enrich services from us or build themselves on top of the platform. And that's where I mean by an offer. So it's both. It's a concept, an industry transition, I would say, and we are taking this and making this available now for customers so they will go over their journey, because it's going to happen, as DevOps did back then. Same thing.
We're at Cisco Live. Any announcements about this?
Oh boy, I just did the video recording for everybody on the Cisco full stack observability platform that I just mentioned. We are making it general available today. Right. And not only that, interesting enough, on the general availability, on top of the FSO platform, in addition to ingest the signals that I said, metrics, events, logs, and traces for Cisco and any other signal that is standard, the platform is open telemetry based, which means that I'm using the standardization format. So anybody ingest for AWS, for Azure, any vendor out there, databases, everything that we could either ingest natively on OpenTelemetry or do the translation ourselves there. Why we did that? Because then the value is not about how much data you ingest and how much you become hostage of a particular vendor, but instead, how much information I can get to drive an insights. So we are GA, the FSO platform, the general availability is here at Cisco Live, with 4 models from Cisco: cost optimization, application resource management, and everything that relates to AI ops. And the monitoring of applications that are cloud native, that's coming from Cisco. But I have 4 partners that build on top at GA at the same time. So the same amount of services that we bring from Cisco and offers is the same from partners. So I have cloud fabrics that build hybrid environments. So they bring all the observability for traditional environments, VMware, virtualized environments on premises together with the cloud. We have Canary, which builds predicted and capacity planning forecaster. They brought their own machine learning models, their own intellectual property into the platform, so they can offer predicted models for anybody across any metric. And we have Evolution that went even further. They built a credit cards authorization app that correlates transactions from the business layers with the infrastructure. And on the case of financial service or point of sales, the infrastructure is not only compute and storage, it's actually their branches where they run and stuff like that. And we have another partner that we are ingesting all the information for carbon footprint, because on our costing sides, we have cost from the lens of money, the monetary aspect, but also the sustainability side, and allow customers to correlate one on another. Because every company these days have a carbon footprint goals and all of these emissions kind of sustainability targets.
Have you got examples or stories where, in the past it took a long time and now it's much quicker to resolve?
100%. So we're an SAP shop, and we went, part of that business transformation was doing a big upgrade and moving to the cloud for SAP. So we actually run SAP in Azure now. And it was always a challenge to understand why things were slow. Certain times of the year when it's slow, which, okay, it seems to be volume, but we don't know exactly what's slow. Now we're able to, with FSO, we can see, oh, your virtual memory is getting exhausted in a system, in an app server, and let's head that off, or move people to another app server while we fix that problem. Or you start seeing small changes in CPU, but they're going up. You could see trend analysis over time now and get ahead of these issues before peak season. Also helps you with performance load testing and all those things. So just having the eyes and ears everywhere helps you get ahead of problems before they impact the business.
Yeah, I think what you said there is the big thing, isn't it? Because you judge the entire organization by your experience with the app.
Experience is now becoming a boardroom KPI, man. It's if you look back, it was on the beginning of DevOps 10 years ago, it was all about availability. So you wanted to have high availability, redundancy. You still want this today. It's part of the design, but that problem kind of got solved because you have redundant infrastructure designed And from the application, you have microservices. So from the cloud native all the way to how we build cloud operating models, you can address availability by design. Then the KPI evolved from availability towards performance. That's what happens in the last 5 years. That's where you have APMs, NPMs, and all the PMs of the world. And then if you look at this, performance has become something that is being solved by multiple of those vendors, but generates a tool sprawl. And the fact that performance was the main KPI actually forced a lot of those teams to have a point of view. But now they would never converge because of the layer 9, the political layer. But because the business has evolved towards experience being the main KPI, you cannot do this without them converging. That's why FSO is a business requirement. It's not a technology kind of shiny object, if you will.
But how do you manage the internet? Because we're going across the internet. Does it give me visibility into that as well? Or?
We do have a way to go over the internet from two lenses, pretty much. There are more details on this, but just to summarize. One is you can track the information that is typical telemetry for networking, like you would do for your data center networking or your campus networking. You have information that comes from BGP and all of that. Routing tables over the whole internet. But we go one step further. So let's say my pizza example, right? If I am the one that is building the pizza application, I can instrument the code and have visibility right there. But what happens is I'm not.
Yeah, because the problem is like, what are the hooks into all these things?
Exactly. So we can have syntactics that mimic a bunch of users from different network vantage points. So I'm on, let's say, on a west state, you are in an east state, same app. It's not instrumented. I cannot have visibility on the code. Or more than anything, you're working from home. So the internet on your home depends upon your local way of you getting connectivity. So you get from the network vantage point, multiple places that is going to test how is the performance, how is the availability, how is the experience towards you on the closest locality, and you correlate that information to the backbone on the internet, and you can give the experience end-to-end and get the internet as metrics information that will be part of the full stack observability piece.
So it sounds fantastic as a platform, and I hear that word a lot these days, platform, but like, do I as a network engineer need to do something with my devices? As an app developer, do I need to do something to, like, as I mentioned, like these hooks, or does it just work with the stuff that's already out there?
So again, if you're having metrics, events, logs, and traces that you are sending somewhere else, you can already start to send them to the FSO platform.
Okay.
So the only thing you need to do is that. If you're an application developer, for instance, you may go one step further because you want to instrument the application code so you can have visibility on runtime. That also helps with security. Because let's say on the network, I'm having a vantage point that shows how the traffic is flowing. But if I'm a security and there is something like you click on a phishing link that we shouldn't, I want to block it as soon and closest as the source as possible. So you can have some sort of cloud native runtime or traditional application runtime. I can block right there and avoid remote code execution. So you have that functionality too that allows the application developers to actually instrument either for traditional apps on their own libraries or for cloud native, for microservice-based one, that allows you to get that view. So that is sort of best practice that people already use for APM. We can expand this beyond. But more than anything, the idea is less about which product. The FSO, from Cisco at least, is all about the use cases. So what is the question that if you ask the platform, you want to be the answer, which is the correlation of it. So I want to see how is the experience doing for Carlos and David on buying the pizza. So in order to ask that question, well, I need to get information from the application that's running, from the backend, maybe from the internet. I want to have security. Is security first or not? Oh, how much is the traffic that's coming from Carlos and David for that application is secure or not? Oh, then for that answer, I need to ingest the security information. You see, we are looking for how the use cases that our customers are asking. And the top two, believe it or not, is exactly what I said. People working from home, everybody on every company, many people working from home, many people in the office, same applications in the back end. Many could be SaaS, like Office 365 even, or accessing a Salesforce for the back-end CRM system, and you have the plain internet in the middle. So when experience goes bad, because you and I belong to the same company, I'm working from home, you are from the office, what happens?
Exactly.
So we ingest that information to enrich the answer. But there are some questions like with the partner build, he wants to know in 2 months from now, if I keep having that spending, Can you predict what I'm going to land and what should I go back when? So by looking back, I just may need to look at a couple metrics and not the whole picture. So there is a lot of variations, and that's the beauty of it.
So I can buy this today, right?
It's available today. It's shipping. Customers can consume, and that's pretty much what it is. It's out there. It's
Brilliant,
just for
Carlos.
customers to learn.
So, I mean, I just want to say this as one CCIE to another who've been in the game for a long time. Thanks for, I think this is going to make our lives a lot better rather than, like, as they say, like all the trash from the top goes down to the network. It's always the network's fault. Hopefully this changes that.
If the network is still the fault, I'd rather take the blame and come and show that the network is part of the solution.
In our case, and that's a good example with our stores, is we want to see what's going on from the point of sale system all the way through. We also have little scanners that they use, little Zebra Android scanners to scan inventory into the stores. You can actually put an SDK agent on there as well. So now you can get that complete picture from any of the devices in the store, and then you use a combination of Thousand Eyes and App Dynamics in this case to see what's going on every step of the way, including in the code on the server. So you can actually load agents on the servers as well, either a machine agent to look at what's going on from a hardware perspective or OS perspective. There's a variety of different agents, but in this case it's Java, so that's actually looking at the Java code, understanding what's going on there and telling you from an application view what's going on. Then you have Thousand Eyes telling you what's going on from a network view.
Yes, I mean, going back to like the ancient days where you had to do like show commands on a device, this is giving you like a different league of visibility into the equipment, right?
It's giving you context and correlation. Okay. Instead of a person having to go into each single device and say, well, it doesn't look like it's this one, let's go to the next one. Doesn't look like this one, call the database guy. I don't see anything. Now you can see it all laid out in front of you, if you want to, in a single pane of glass.
And if I am a technical person and I want to get this, what tips would you give to someone when you're talking to management? I think your example was draw the picture, right?
Yeah, that first conversation and show, you have to articulate what the problem is in a way that they're going to understand. If you just go in and say, well, I can't track this and that, they're just like talking network, people's eyes glaze over unless you're talking to a network engineer. So you have to show it in a context that they understand. And for me, that's what worked at our organization, is show the reason why we have to call everybody, because we don't know where the problem is. So if you can show that in a picture, that worked for me. You start getting your leadership and advocating for you to get you started on this journey, and then you bring in partners. That's the other key piece of this, is you're not going to be able to do it alone. You do need good partners to help you on this journey. And there's a lot of them out there, and we certainly have our preferences at Carhartt, but they've been a key part of this journey, helping us along the way.
The cost when a store goes down, if you can resolve it much, much quicker, that's going to make a huge impact, right?
Yeah, it's a cliche, but time is money, right? In business, if you can't do something, obviously that there's going to be a significant cost there. So if our distribution center is offline, we're not shipping, there's impact there. If a store is, we lose a store, or registers aren't working, or the bank's not accepting payments for some reason, that's a revenue loss to the system, but it's also damage to the brand.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also frustrating to our associates. So it's really, it's not just a financial cost. There's many costs to downtime. So when you have something like this where you can narrow down very quickly what the problem is, get the root cause immediately, you can fix it. Ideally, get down the road here where you can actually prevent it.
So I mean, you've got distribution around the world. So you're producing your own products. It's made in the US, right?
Correct. It's we have the stuff that we make ourselves. We do have some plants in sewing plants in the United States. We have some sewing plants in Mexico. We also have third-party partners around the world that help us with other things. So, but manufacturing's around the world, sourcing's around the world. So from the wholesale side, we're definitely global.
Yeah. So I mean, you're making your own product. You've got all these big distribution centers that you have to ship the stuff around the world. You've got your stores, and you're selling on Amazon now, I believe, and other places.
Yep. So we have our own .com sites, both in Europe and in the United States. We have many, many wholesale partners like Amazon.com. We actually have a Carhartt store on Amazon.com, but we also have stores within a store. So Dick's Sporting Goods, Home Depot, we have end caps. So the local Ace Hardware's in the United States, we have a glove station. So we're showing up everywhere, and it's been great to see the growth over the last even the 7 years I've been there.
And FSO gives you visibility into all of that?
Eventually, we're getting there. We got to build it. We're still building it. Yeah, it's still new, but that is the idea, is that wherever, and that's how we're prioritizing it too, is it's kind of, follow the money, but, so we're kind of looking at the lines of business right now that again, it's about the, placing an order, shipping an order, and invoicing for those orders. What are the things that support that business processes, and then making sure we can see all of those processes across the board. That's how we prioritize, and that's where we're getting started.
Advice for network people. In the old days, we cared about the network. You've had to change roles, And it seems like networking people are having to change and to go up the stack, if you like, the technical stack to apps. What's your advice? Apart from crying and, you know?
Yeah, it's very ironic because now I've always thought of myself as a network engineer and then a network leader. You know, I moved into management while I was at Carhartt, and that's how I kind of defined myself. But once I reached that point, I felt like I could do more. I felt like I could do more for Carhartt. So I took an interest in learning the business and start learning more areas in IT. Now I lead a team of SAP technical people. I have a couple of DBAs, and I'm hiring application performance analysts. And this is all from the network background. But the superpower that we have as network engineers, we have end-to-end thinking automatically. We can connect dots that most people don't. That's the superpower we have that can make us good in this role. What you also have to have is a change in mindset. So IT is great about being reactive. We're great in a crisis. Let's bring everyone together and solve the problem. But it's always kind of static threshold driven. So, hey, the CPU is at 99%. Let's go fix it and figure out what's going on. We've eaten all the bandwidth on what have you. What we want to do is become more anomaly focused and go kind of looking for things before they become problem. That's how you become proactive. So, but that requires a mindset change. So you might start firing alerts that something's trending up. And then people, a lot of times we're coming across people that say, well, it's not a problem right now. No one's complaining.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go after why is doing that though. And then maybe we're going to head off trouble.
Advice for network engineers or techies going into management, because a lot of us don't want to do that.
And that's okay. That's okay. If it's something you want to do, though, you do need to be very deliberate about it. And the number one piece of advice I can give you, start talking to people you don't normally talk to. You know, set up, monthly one-on-ones, maybe even more frequently. Start, people you want to get to know more about what they do. That's where you start. Start talking to other people, and it'll just naturally progress from there. If you want to be a leader, then go after the training that you need for that. I mean, that's easy to say, but for me, it was really about networking and learning about the business. And then it'll just naturally, those opportunities will come.
I love that. That's great.